My name is Sheila Dixon. I'm the Executive Director of the Northern Virginia Black Chamber of Commerce, and I just want to welcome everyone here this evening. We have been putting on a series since June called Caring Through COVID. And as we all kind of move through the pandemic and look at our businesses and the ups, the downs, the turnarounds, we wanted to ensure that our panel tonight will supply you with the energy as well as tools and tips to keep you motivated so that you can complete your fourth quarter goals. So at this time, again, I want to welcome everybody, and I'm going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves. LaVurne, would you like to start?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is LaVurne Williams, and I am the service director. I'm a service director with the Fairfax-Falls Church Community Services Board. I am currently directing the detoxification and residential programming area. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Derek?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Derek Russell. I'm a licensed professional counselor, neurotherapist, and founder of Mindstate Wellness Center here in Vienna. And yeah, happy to have the opportunity to speak on this topic. And yeah.
Excellent. Phillip?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Phillip Pope. I work at INOVA Fairfax Hospital. I am a medical social worker. I work with pediatrics and also adults. I'm very excited about this event, and I'm blessed to see everybody. Happy to see everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. And at this time, I'd like Nikki to have a few words.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Nikki Brown. I am a community health specialist with the Fairfax County Health Department, and I'm really excited to be here tonight, excited to have such an amazing panel. And I would like to just take a moment before we begin to play a little trivia with the crowd. So I'm going to play a mental health trivia game with you all, and I'm going to do some true or false questions, good old true or false questions. What you need to do is, after I ask the question, you can put in the chat whether you think the statement that I mentioned is true or false. Okay, you guys ready? Let me see if can I share my screen? It's okay if I can't. Okay, all right. We are going to get started. Can everybody see my screen? Let me start the show. Okay, all right, so the first question, true or false? It is important that your mental health provider includes your identity and cultural background in your treatment plan. Is this true or false? Your mental health provider should include your identity and cultural background in your treatment plan. Let's see, what do we have? True, true. Okay, I'm seeing trues. Oh, someone said false. Okay. Okay, so the answer is true. This is really important to being a culturally responsive provider, especially when working with communities of color. This is something that should be considered and factored into a treatment plan. Are you guys ready for the next one? Next question. It is okay if you feel awkward with your mental health provider. Is this true or false? It is okay to feel awkward with your mental health provider. Let's see what we have. I'm seeing false, okay. Okay, the answer to that is false. You should feel comfortable with your mental health provider. You should have the feeling that your mental health provider understands you and empathizes with you. Okay, ready for the next one? True or false? Suicide is one of the leading causes of death in Black men ages 15 to 24. Is this true or false? Suicide is one of the leading causes of death in Black men ages 15 to 24. True. Okay, we have someone saying true. This is actually a true statement. And in fact, what we're seeing is that suicide rates are actually rising in young Black boys as well, as young as 6 years old. So again, I'm really happy that we're here tonight, gathering on such an important topic in our community. Okay, we're almost done. Feeling sad, hopeless, or anxious for more than a few weeks is normal. Is this true or false? Feeling sad, hopeless, or anxious for more than a few weeks is normal. True, false? Okay, I'm seeing some false in the chat. Yep, so this is false. This actually could be a sign of depression and a sign that you might need to seek medical or professional help. Everybody, has a time when they might feel blue, have the blues, or feel sad. That is normal to have those cycles in life. But if you're feeling down and hopeless for an extended period of time, it might be time to seek medical help. Okay, true or false? Depression is a whole body illness. True or false? Depression is a whole body illness. We have true, again from Whitney, okay. This is true, and this is really important because a lot of times when we think of depression, we think of feelings and emotions, but depression can show up in different ways. You might feel exhausted. You might feel tired. You might get aches, headaches, pains, things like that. So it's really important to understand the different ways that mental illness and depression can affect your whole body. And this is the last question, okay? This is a trick question. You should take all your troubles to God. Is this true or false? You should take all of your troubles to God. Let's see what we have in the chat. True or false? Okay, so I'm seeing nobody wants to answer that one. So you know what? That I would say this is true, okay? It's true. Religion and spirituality is very important in people's lives, but it's also important to consider, in your religion, in your spirituality, the gifts and tools that have been given to us. When you're feeling sick, you have cancer, you have a headache, you go to the doctors to get those types of treatments. And the same thing if you have a mental illness, there are professions who specialize in treatment for those things. All right, so everybody, good job on the mental health trivia. Thank you, and we're gonna move on to the next part of this session.
Great, Sam?
Yeah, thank you, Nikki. I appreciate that. Thank you for those questions that help us to be reminded of how important it is to know some key things about our health and our mental health there. I particularly like that last question, take all our troubles to God, because that is one that sometimes I hear people say, well, God will, he will take care of the whole thing for me. And that is true. But what they forget, the portion is that, as you shared, the Lord provides resources for you, including trained folks to help guide you, as well as other resources to use. And that's the part we sometimes overlook. My name is Rev Samuel Nixon Jr. I'm also, as part of the Northern Virginia Black Chamber of Commerce, and also associate minister at the Alfred Street Baptist Church with our health, our HIV/AIDS ministry, and also our entrepreneurship ministry, our men's ministry, and our missions ministry. I also work with our jail and prison community. So it's a blessing to see this topic this evening. We want to move on now to our next portion of the program, which is our brother Derek Russell, who will share with us more in terms of presenting information about mental health. And he wants us to be aware of certain information that we all should be cognizant of and know about as it relates to this topic. And we may not have given a lot of thought to and may not even know some of the resources. So we're going to ask Brother Derek if he would, in his own way, share with us a presentation on mental health as we move forward with the program this evening. Brother Derek.
Thank you, Reverend Nixon. Let me go ahead and share my screen as well so you guys can see the presentation. Can everyone see that?
Yes, we've got it. It looks good.
Perfect. There we go. So once again, I want to thank the Northern Virginia Black Chamber of Commerce for this opportunity to speak on caring through COVID, and specifically, this conversation on mental health. And so this presentation, we're going to go through some symptoms, mental health symptoms of the workplace and how we've all been affected, employers and employees, with this pandemic. But more importantly, we're going to talk about some coping strategies and recovery for, coming out of the pandemic and going into 2022. And so I picked this graphic that you see in front of you on purpose. So I like that all of these white circles are in this together. And so we've all been affected by this pandemic together, but that also means that we can work together to come out of the pandemic stronger. And so we're going to talk about the first quote I have is keeping watch of the team. And so as teams go, there is an element of cohesion, there's an element of working towards a common goal, and there's an element of looking out for one another. And so a lot of times when we're in the workplace, we may not be paying as much attention to how our coworkers are doing, how our staff is doing, how our employer is doing. And so in times such as these, it may be more important to start looking at these things because it affects the whole team. And in a grander scale, it affects the business and the bottom line. And so a study was done looking at the mental health effects in the workplace. And this study looked at multiple studies that have been done during the pandemic. And what they saw was that social distancing can lead to feelings of isolation, depression, anxiety, and PTSD. And those who already had existing mental health symptoms, the pandemic has exacerbated those symptoms. And so it's even more so important to be checking in with our coworkers, our teammates, to make sure that we're all doing okay. Another effect of this pandemic, the stress is insomnia, difficulties falling asleep, staying asleep, or oversleeping as well, and then increased self-medicating behaviors such as alcohol use and abuse, and drug use and abuse, just to cope and just to try to get through. We've all know someone or have experienced ourselves losing some loved ones to the virus. And so there's a lot of stress and things that we have on our mind in the workplace and out of the workplace that we're all trying to cope with and deal with. And so when we're looking at virtual workspaces, this is a lot different from working in person because it affects those team dynamics. There's a sense of lowered cohesion or lack of cohesion when you're in those digital spaces, because a lot of the times the best meetings, they happen by the water cooler. And what I mean by that is that when you're in person, a lot of times you may have a meeting, and then after the meeting you may have a light bulb moment where you've thought of something for the project, and you can easily go by your coworker's cubicle or coworker's office and, brainstorm and come up with some more ideas for the project, or, just in passing in the hallway or standing by the water cooler and discussing things that you've been thinking about. And a lot of times with virtual hours and virtual workspaces, you may not be on at the same time as your coworker, or it may not just be that it may not be as easy to facilitate those interactions. And so it's things that we need to consider when we're thinking about how these digital spaces can affect workplace team dynamics. Another big aspect of virtual workspaces is and COVID stress is productivity. Increased stress that we've seen over these past year and a half to close to 2 years now. Increased stress causes some concentration difficulties. And so when that happens, we all know that when we're not able to focus as well as we'd like to, we make more mistakes. And again, that doesn't just affect the individual, but it affects the whole team. It affects the client, it affects the customer. And from a financial business standpoint, it affects the bottom line. And so we want to make sure that we're keeping tabs on making sure that our stress levels aren't too high. Another aspect of this COVID stress is increased negative emotional responses. And so typically when our mood is better and things aren't going our way, or we have that coworker that may get on our nerves a little bit, or the customer that may annoy us a little bit, we have a better ability to inhibit some of those emotional responses, whether it be anger or what have you. But when we're in a heightened stress, when we have that heightened stress already, it makes it a little bit harder to inhibit some of those negative emotional responses. And then lastly, just as the slide says, there's a decrease in quality of interpersonal interactions and perceived support between employer and employees during this pandemic time, and while we're in this virtual workspace. Again, speaking back to the team dynamic aspect. And then lastly, from a business financial aspect, the pandemic has caused financial strain on a lot of small business owners and business owners in general. And so that can lead to feelings of being overwhelmed, and then thus overcompensating or overworking, and eventually can lead to burnout. And the employees have felt this throughout the pandemic through various aspects, but they're not working the same hours that they're used to working. They've developed a loss of income due to that. And then productivity is affected as well. And so now that we've talked about the negative aspects that we all have heard, known, experienced ourselves, we want to go to coping and recovery. And so we're now looking at strengthening our team, strengthening your team. And so one way that businesses can do this is implementation of resilience programs. And that could look like, a myriad of different ways. But I think that when you are implementing resilience programs for a business, focusing on these aspects of having the ability to adapt and be flexible, focusing, again, the common theme is developing social connections, whether big or small, finding that shared sense of purpose, and then lastly, focusing on hope, because there has been a lack of hope that we've been experiencing in this pandemic period. And so being able to build a purpose, build a mission, and have that hope for the future can strengthen team dynamics and get everyone back on board. Another way to strengthen your team is adoption of proper anti-contagion policies and protocols. So, that's the PPE, is a hand sanitizer, what have you. And then employees, they feel more at ease knowing that their job or their employer is taking the necessary steps to keep everyone safe. It demonstrates a level of empathy from the employer, as well as professional care. And then this last one is a pretty neat idea. It's called caremongering, and it started in Canada. And individuals have gone to social media to post acts of kindness to their friends, their family, and strangers who have been impacted the most by the pandemic. And so it's separated by hashtags, and they have an in search of section and an offering section. And those who are looking for help or offering assistance can go on the social media page and do so and link up with those who need services and help each other out. And so studies have shown that being able to help others has an emotional positive benefit for the helper, just as helping someone is beneficial for the person you're helping. And so again, a question that we can ask ourselves is, what could caremongering look like in the workplace? I know typically around this time of year, and then specifically at Christmas, we typically would do different things where we are helping one another out. We're giving gifts and things like that. But I think that implementing something like this, however it works for the business, is important, again, to strengthen your team throughout the year. Because again, we want to be able to make sure that we have that aspect of looking out for one another as we're coming out of this pandemic and as everyone is adjusting and trying to be healthier. And so lastly, have some personal strategies, which are pretty standard, but again, still very good to implement for our own lives, is having that self-care and participating in enjoyable activities. Limit reading the news and social media. Typically, they can be triggering because they're filled with negative visuals oftentimes. So give yourself a break from that. Having a healthy diet is very important for the mind and for the body. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to do a keto diet or, a complete shift, but just something as simple as adding more fruits and veggies is going to help out a lot. It's going to improve your mood. It's going to strengthen your immune system and all that good stuff. Exercising regularly is very important. Again, you've heard of the runner's high, and that's, it's for real. When you exercise, your brain releases these feel-good chemicals in the brain, and that can lower your stress levels, lower anxiety, improve your mood. And then lastly, again, the common theme is getting connected or staying connected from a social aspect. And, as safe and as comfortable as your ability to do so is, taking time out to make sure that you are still having some social connections, because it's important. We are communal beings, and we need that personal interaction to thrive. And so I hope that we're able to take some of these things and even add on to the things that I've talked about to make sure that we're able to come out of this pandemic stronger than when we came into it, from a personal standpoint, but also in the workplace as well. So thank you again for your time.
Great. Thank you, Derek. At this time, we are going to break everyone into breakout rooms, and you will be assigned a room to either Derek, Phillip, or LaVurne. And we'll have about 20 minutes. They have a series of questions that they'll walk everyone through, and then we'll come back for a mindfulness exercise, and we'll close out the session. So just give us a few moments and we'll do the breakout rooms. Phillip or LaVurne, do you want to offer a few words while we're in the process?
Good evening, everybody. There was a lot of good strategies that Derek talked about as far as like coping with stress. A lot of those, I mean, everybody probably use on an everyday basis. The biggest thing as far as with stress is just remember to do something for you, whether big or small. Definitely do something for you that will release the stress. It's something as easy as watching your favorite show, going for a walk. Just do something for you. That's the biggest thing for you to be able to get through the stress. And the biggest thing is for people to know that they're not alone. You always got somebody who can help, assist in any way. And we definitely will share some of those resources. And just our biggest thing is that, you know, you are not the only one going through it, and you always can get help. That's the biggest thing when you're going through a stressful situation event.
Great.
Absolutely. I support my colleagues on what they have shared with regards to how you can care for yourself. And then the other thing that you can do in caring for yourself is affirm yourself. While we are going through some very, very hard times, there is something that we are doing every day, just by virtue of the fact that you're here participating in this and this discussion tonight. There's something we're doing every day that is so right and so pleasing, and that will be so helpful to others, but will also remind you that despite this pandemic, you are still thriving, and affirm yourself in that thriving. Tell yourself when you've done a wonderful job, and what that wonderful job looked like, and what you want things to look like this time next year for yourself. So again, thank you to my colleagues, and that's my tip.
And also, I was going to say real briefly about information, Sheila. We can remind our folks that are looking, that are listening to the presentation, if you do have something you want to put in the chat, feel free to indicate any questions or information you might like to use to chat for. So please feel free to do that.
Great. And it looks like the rooms are ready. So you'll be divided into your groups, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
Oh, we got snatched out of our session.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they were good. They were.
As Phillip was just giving us the important integral information, and we just got that last sentence.
That's okay. We'll give him a chance to speak at the end, so everybody can benefit from what he's saying. So we'll just wait a couple more seconds for everyone to come back. Okay, it looks like almost everyone is back online. And so we're going to have Derek actually walk us through our next step of the program.
All right. So we are going to do what's called a mindfulness exercise. So when talking about this event, we wanted to make sure that it was interactive. And so one way that we can add some of that interactivity is I can show you guys, and we can actually do this if you're comfortable in your own home or wherever you are, to participate in this exercise. And so it's called a body scan exercise. And so what essentially you're going to be doing is just breathing with your eyes closed. And I'll tell you when we're about to start, but you'll just be breathing with your eyes closed, and you want to be scanning your body from head to toe and thinking about and looking at different parts of your body. If it's tense, to try to relax it. If you have different thoughts that come to your mind, acknowledge those thoughts, but try to push them away. And so this is important because a lot of times our mind is going in multiple directions. We're looking, towards the future. We're thinking about things in the past, and we often don't stay present in the moment. And so staying present in the moment is good for our brain from a psychological and emotional standpoint, because it doesn't allow us to think about these other things and affect our well-being. But also it just helps us to stay in the moment and helps us stay calm in these stressful times. And so I'm going to ask everyone to close your eyes, and we're going to do this for a few minutes. And then we're going to come back together and talk about your experience with that. So as you gently close your eyes, I want you to focus on your breath. And as you're breathing, if you're able to, I'd like you to try to breathe more through your abdomen and your belly versus breathing through your chest. And as you're breathing that way, focus on the air entering through your nose, filling up your abdomen, going through your lungs, thinking about the feeling that gives you. And throughout this time, I'll be saying different things in different cues, but as much as you can, try to sit as still as you can in your chair or wherever you are. Another part of the exercise is tuning into your senses. And so how does the chair feel on your arms, on your back, on your legs? Continue to breathe. Try to make sure that your breathing is nice and even and slow. Not too slow, but not too fast as well. Whatever thoughts come to mind, try not to judge those thoughts. Just recognize the thought and then place it to the side. And when you're ready, once you feel that you've settled in with the breathing and you've reached a point of calm and relaxation, I'd like for you to start the scan from your feet, moving up towards your head. So paying attention to each body part as you move up the body. And imagine yourself for a brief second that you are that body part, and asking yourself, how does it feel? How does it feel to be the foot? How does it feel to be the calf muscle? Taking your time as you're moving up. We'll go for about another minute. Just easing into it, settling into it. Thinking about temperature, if you have heat or any ventilation, fans going on, how that feels against your skin. But as much as you can, trying to stay in the moment, thinking about this moment. take note of any areas that may be hypersensitive, maybe tense, maybe relaxed more than you realized. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes and come back to the main room. Good, good. How was that experience for, and anyone can chime in, but how was that experience for you?
Almost fell asleep.
And that could be a good thing. That could be a good thing. That means that you were nice and relaxed.
Yes, I was relaxed. It was a calming, comforting time.
Yes. And so you can imagine that, if you're in a high stress state, doing this can calm you down, hopefully. But we're using our body's physiology to work against these stressful emotions that we may be going through. Anyone else would like to chime in?
At some point, it was a little bit difficult to not think about other things. And the thought occurred to me, well, I'm so used to thinking, right, about what's next or what happened, that it was a little bit challenging to try not to think of that. And I thought it was good for you to remind, not to judge yourself, just sort of try to get back to it. And so that was good. I also felt a little bit guilty too. I just felt like, not used to taking time to just not do anything specific,
Yeah, and that's great. That's great feedback. I mean, the judgment piece, there's no right or wrong way to do it. And the more that you do it, the more that you feel comfortable doing it the way that you feel most relaxed in doing so. And the more that we can practice being present, being mindful, helps us to turn off that norm of looking at always thinking of different things. So yeah, thank you for that feedback. Good. If there's nothing else, then I guess I'll turn it back over to you, Sheila, if no one else has any feedback.
I just had one other quick question, Derek. When we practiced that, like I said, we took a few minutes to do it this time. Is there any guidance in terms of what you suggest of the duration of time, or as we do it more often, should we, look at doing it a little bit longer at some point, or just these brief points are sufficient? What do you suggest are helpful as we go through our day and our week and our months then?
Yes, I'd encourage a longer period of time. But again, however you're able to fit it in, it works for you, works for you. And so for the sake of, the timing of the event, I wanted to give us a few minutes to be able to get into it. But definitely, if you're able to, start off with 5 minutes or so and go up from there, you definitely see some positive results.
Okay, and also the environments that we do it in, like we're all in our quiet places now, but when we, in terms of how do you suggest we address times of doing it when we're in a work setting or another setting, or doing our breaks or something like that? Is that you suggest that would be a good point, because especially clearing your mind, I would think that might be a little bit more challenging when you're on the work site, because you got so many things that are usually going on. So do you recommend that we try to wait till we're in a space that we don't have that, or should we, carve out time during the break to strive to make that relaxing moments work during our times of stressful activity there.
Yes, for sure. And I saw that a question came in from Whitney in the chat. She asked, can you do this exercise anywhere? And so I would say that if you're in an environment that is causing you to feel anxious or keyed up, then removing yourself from that environment, if you're at work, and trying to find a place, either going to the bathroom, going to your car, somewhere that's going to remove yourself from that environment that's going to cause you to be keyed up, and just taking a few minutes out to do this exercise.
Okay. Thank you.
No, thank you for the question.
So we do want to be cognizant of everyone's time, but I would like to just, again, thank all of our panelists for being part of today's call. We'd also like to thank Dominion Energy, who has donated to the chamber so that we can facilitate and produce this event, the Caring Through COVID. So just wanted to recognize them. At this time, I would like our panelists to offer a few words, because I know that the breakout rooms are probably getting a little more engaging. So if our panelists could just say a few words, and then we'll let everybody go for the evening. Phillip?
Thank you. Definitely want to say thank you for allowing me to participate in this event. For the breakout room, I enjoyed the discussion. We talked about coping strategies, the coping strategies that would address the walking, goal setting, doing small things, making tea, just doing ways for doing things for you in order for you to cope with whatever situation is going on. That was definitely great. We also talked about social norms and just obstacles that are out there that are preventing people from helping out, from reaching out for help, and also for stigmas. So my biggest thing I wanted to say is definitely, like, this is a pandemic. Everyone, you're here, you're doing well, you're not alone. This is something that everybody in the world is going through. And if you are stressed about anything, it's okay to talk to a therapist or reach out for help, because you're not alone. You don't isolate yourself, and you definitely we're here to help any way we can.
Great, thank you. LaVurne?
Yes, thank you for having me. This was a pleasure. And we too, in our breakout room, talked about the stigmas, why we as a people generally do not talk about mental health, and how we can approach that differently. And it was a wonderful, refreshing conversation, because we talked about how we can normalize the things that many of us go through, and how we can tell people what to expect in care and what time frame they're looking at. And we also talked about affirming self and one another, as well as the different levels of empathy and support that we can provide, and how people are beginning to reconnect in the community with their work, with their colleagues.
Excellent, thank you. Derek?
Yeah, and our breakout room was pretty much touched on those topics as well, interspersed in there. And one thing that we talked about as well that was big was generational trauma and generational curses, in terms of barriers to reaching out, and some mistrust as well, with going back to slavery, and having to always be strong, and not showing weakness and vulnerability, and not always knowing who we can trust with what we're talking, what we're things that we may be struggling with, because they could use it against us, or back then they could get beat for expressing those things. And so these things kind of evolve over generations, and to lead us to having this barrier where we're not reaching out for help as much as we could be.
Great. Thank you, everyone. We will have some resources available that we will post out to the website, or we'll send you an email with some tips, tools, and resources that you can take away, and please share with all of your colleagues and friends. Again, just thank you to everyone, and have a beautiful evening.